welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and welcome to yet another day of the 12 Days of Christmas. So, as you know, this is typically a booktube channel where I talk about books, but I also like to take an opportunity sometimes to talk about other hobbies that I have or other things that I enjoy doing. And a video I love making every single year is a video where I wrap up all of the games that I played on my Nintendo Switch during the year and rank them and let you know what I thought. Earlier this year, I was doing videos quarterly to wrap up, and then I just kind of lost track of that. So some of these may be things that you've heard of before and some of them may not, but I'm going to attempt to do like a tier ranking video and screen record on my laptop and then put it in here, and we'll just see how that ends up going. I do primarily do cozy games, but not all of the games on here are your stereotypical cozy like farming sim type games. Some of them are more combat heavy, some of them are more like puzzle games. So there's definitely a variety of different games that I played this year. I'm not including any demos that I tried, but I am including games that maybe I didn't play for a very long time, and there's a few that I'm still in the process of playing while I'm filming this, and I'm still including those. So by my count, I think I played 30 different games on my Nintendo Switch this year, which sounds like a lot, and I guess it is, but there's a lot of games on here that the gameplay was actually very short. So there's some on here where the gameplay for the entire game was like an hour or 2 hours, and I feel like that's why my number of games was so short this year. But then I have some that I just didn't continue as well. So there's multiple reasons why there's so many games on this list, but I wanted to share with you my thoughts on each one of them and rank them on a tier rating scale. Okay, so here is my tier ranking list. You'll have to forgive me because there's definitely ads on this page. So it is what it is. I was going to go in the order of how I played these games, like which ones I played when, but instead we have these alphabetized because that's how the tier ranking list decided to organize them. So we're going to start with A Little to the Left. A Little to the Left is a puzzle solving game, and it's very organizational based, which is really fun and really nice if you like organization. I didn't play this one very long. There was a game trial on Nintendo Switch for a week, and so I played it quite a few times. I put a decent amount of hours into it. Not the same as I would put into like a game demo, because I think a game demo would actually be quite shorter than the amount of time I played this. I initially really enjoyed it because the puzzles were like very intuitive and just satisfying in terms of organization. But as the puzzles went on, they were trying to kind of like really switch things up. And so sometimes the way that you would organize things didn't really make any sense and wasn't very satisfying. Sometimes you would organize according to size or according to color or things like that. But sometimes the way that you would then organize it, it would look like out of proportion size-wise, or it would look weird. And then also because this is on the Switch, it felt really fiddly because it's kind of more of like a point and click. I think that this would be much more fun if you were playing it on the computer instead, because dragging and dropping things is a lot easier. Or there was the one where I ended up quitting was one where it was like the labels on these 3 cans and you had to turn them a certain way so they all lined up, and it was so fiddly and frustrating on the Switch. As a result, I don't feel like this is a bad game, but it really just like wasn't a game for me. So I guess if I'm gonna rank this in kind of for my enjoyment, which is probably what I should do, I would put this in the C tier. Honestly, it probably deserves to be in like B tier, but again, really fiddly. The next game is A Short Hike. This is a really short game where you play as this cute little bird that is trying to get a cell phone service. So you're trying to climb to the top of this mountain, and along the way you kind of go on different trails, you do little quests for people. There's flying involved, and oh my gosh, it was just such a sweet little game. This is one I could actually see myself replaying just for the cozy and comfort value. So I think I would put this one in the A tier. I think it was really well done. The next game is actually one that I played last year and put a really low tier, and that is Bear and Breakfast. The reason I'm including this again is because I played it last year, but I gave up really, really quickly because the controls were just really weird on the Switch and very far from intuitive, so I didn't get very far at all before I totally gave up. I played it again earlier this year and was able to sink a decent amount of time into it because I finally figured out the controls. I figured like, hey, I'm much more seasoned of a gamer at this point for me to be able to figure it out. So I liked the premise of it, is that you're this bear and you're setting up these different bed and breakfasts, and it just like the storyline of it was really cute and like quirky and funny and was just really nice. But the game started glitching the more that you had these bed and breakfasts, and then the more you ended up having, you had to keep up with all of them, and all of them wanted different things. And I think it would have been better if they could have just had you continue to expand the same bed and breakfast, because initially all you have to have is bedrooms, and the next one they need bathrooms, and then another one they have a kitchen with food and you have to make sure the food stays completely stocked. Another one's in a cold area, and so you have to go there every day to replenish the wood to make sure that it stays warm enough. And so it ended up feeling like really grindy, but also kind of disconnected and far away from each other, these different bed and breakfasts. And so it ended up just not being very fun the longer that you played. And again, the controls were still fiddly and far from intuitive. So I think last year I put this in a D space. I would actually knock it up to probably C at this point. So it was a little better and I spent a little bit more time on it. Next we have Carto. Carto has the most adorable graphics, which is why I ended up purchasing it. This is a puzzle solving game where you're this little girl and you're wandering around, you're getting pieces of a map. And as you get the pieces of a map, you're able to reorganize them. And then it creates new paths that weren't there before. And so the idea of it is really, really fun. And I loved the art style. Unfortunately, as time went on, I just found myself kind of getting annoyed by some of the mechanics. And there was one section that I just could not figure out. And I had to Google it. And as it turns out, tons of people have Googled it and gotten stuck in the same spot because the game has you doing something that it never told you was possible to do before and you've never done in any of the other puzzles. And so it ended up being kind of like an exercise in frustration at times for me. You may not feel the same way. You may be super good at puzzles, but I'm not. So this was like an okay game. I'm going to put it in the B tier because the music was great. The graphics were great. It ran really well on the Switch, but it just kind of like wasn't for me. Next, we have Core Keeper. This is one of my newer purchases on the Switch. It was kind of sold to me as Stardew Valley, but you stay in the mines the whole time. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. The mines are my favorite part of Stardew Valley. But unfortunately, this didn't have the same charm for me that Stardew Valley had. I'm going to continue trying to play it because I haven't put a lot of time into it. But it wasn't a game that gives you any sort of direction, and I really wish there was more of a story. I think that there is more as you continue. But at the point where I am, I've done a lot of exploring in the caves, and you can like have these different workbenches you set up, and I like being able to like, there's all these different places you can go, and it's really interesting. I like the exploration aspect, but we don't know why are we in these caves. Like we end up getting transported there like magically somehow at the start of the game, and I don't know what I have to do to progress the story part because I'm really interested in why we're there. So I think that this game has like a lot of potential, and maybe it's one that I'll end up really, really loving. But at the point of filming this, it's one that I just, it's not quite there for me. So I'm going to put this in the B tier as well, but I'm going to put it higher than Carto because I like it better than Carto. Next, we have The Cruel King and the Great Hero. This looked like such a cute game. I will have clips of it on screen. Like the graphics are beautiful. You're this little princess whose father has died and this dragon is raising you. And you kind of get like tips very early on that the dragon might have been the bad guy that you're raised by, but you don't know that. You don't know any better. And you go on different adventures, get different companions. It's like an RPG, but it's turn-based combat. And so a lot of that just sounded excellent to me. Unfortunately, this game was as boring as heck because as I'm playing like the different things for like the turn-based combat, like there's nothing you do that's like interactive. Like you choose what you're gonna do and then you do that and then the enemies do things, and like there's no like action commands or way to kind of like make that better, or I don't know, like I was so bored. Like, I really, really just did not like this game, and it's actually one of my biggest regretted purchases this year because I was really excited about it, and then it was half off, but it's a $30 game, so I still paid $15 for a game that I thought was boring and I gave up on, like, pretty soon. Next, we have Crypt Custodian, which is another newer purchase. I actually bought it the exact same time I bought Core Keeper, and I bought it because the game that I'm going to talk about after this, it was said that, like, if you really liked this game, you'll like Crypt Custodian. And so I was really, really excited. You play it as this cat who has died, and now you're in the afterlife, and you basically get sentenced to be a janitor. So you're going around cleaning things up. It's pretty combat heavy. There are puzzles and stuff like that, but it's mostly focused on, like, the combat. The story is really quirky. The cat's really cute. Like, I have enjoyed this game, but I haven't finished it yet, and I have a couple of other games I've been picking up and gravitating more towards this one. So I do think it's a decent game. I like that it's got a difficulty slider on it because there was one boss that I just, like, could not beat no matter how hard I tried. So I put it on an easier setting for that boss and then put it back to normal setting afterwards. And I like games that give you the ability to do that so you can still enjoy the story and enjoy the game as a whole without actually having to give up if you struggle with the combat. So for me, I would say, I'm trying to decide if this is B or A because I'm going to put it A, but it's not as good as A Short Hike. But it's also not nearly as good as the game that I bought it because of, and that's Death's Door. Death's Door is such a good game. I actually saw it compared to Tunic, which is one of my favorite games that I played last year, and I don't think it's that similar to Tunic. I think the similarities are that the combat is really, really difficult, but the puzzle solving element is not there. Like, I would say Tunic is far more puzzle heavy and Death's Door is far more combat heavy. But it's really interesting because the combat kind of is most of the puzzling in Death's Door, that each enemy has patterns that it follows. And if you can figure out the patterns, you can figure out how to beat them. This game is really hard for someone who's not typically good at combat. Me. I'm talking about me. But it was so rewarding because sometimes I would die a million times trying to beat a big boss. And then I would figure out what I was supposed to do. And each time I died felt like a learning experience. It felt like I was getting better and better at it. The soundtrack's amazing. And you play as this little crow who's adorable and is basically a Grim Reaper. So you go around and you're reaping and then you get kind of stuck in a place because if you don't bring back, like, your assigned soul, you can't move on. You stay stuck in a place. And so you're trying to unravel, like, why things are the way that they are. There's all these doors that you go through into different worlds, and, like, the hall of doors that you go through to go to these different worlds, there's like a central hub where all the doors are. It kind of reminds me of Monsters Inc., but, you know, less cheerful with a very gray color palette. This was one of my favorite games I played this year. So this was an easy S tier for me, which is really surprising because this is not my normal type of game. Next, we have Donut County, which is just a silly, quirky little game where you are a hole in the grounds and you swallow things. And as you swallow something, you get bigger and you can swallow bigger and bigger things. So you might start with something like a donut and end with something like a skyscraper. I know that sounds ridiculous, and it kind of is. And I don't think I would have ever purchased this game except for that I heard that there's a storyline that goes with it that's really quirky and fun. And the storyline is hilarious. It's this whole thing with, like, this raccoon and his friends, and they're in this pit underground, and it's like how they got there. And it is just it's so funny. And I got it on a really great sale where I paid like $3 for it. And I sat there and I played it through in one sitting because it was just so much fun. My daughter has played it over and over and over and over again. So we have more than gotten our money's worth for this game. I don't know. Part of me wants to put it in S tier because it's just so much fun, but it's also, like, really short. So I don't know. I think I am going to put it in A tier. I liked A Short Hike a little bit better. So I guess I'll put it here. Next up, we have the newest game that I have on this list. Actually, I have two new games that I got for Christmas that I've each played just a little bit. That's Echoes of Wisdom, which is the new Zelda game. And my gosh, this game is a blast. Like, the mechanics are very different from other Zelda games that I have played. And you actually get to play as Zelda and not Link, for once. So you are the hero as Zelda, which is also really fun. The art style is very similar to Link's Awakening, very different from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, but you're able to get this ability very soon at the beginning of the game where you're able to create echoes. So you create copies of other things. So if you end up killing a monster, you can make a copy of that monster, and now when you create that echo, it will fight for you. And you can use echoes of rocks and different things to be able to reach areas you couldn't get to before. And it is just so creative, the gameplay. I love it so much so far. It is like, I feel like it's probably going to end up being potentially a favorite game, but I haven't played it enough to say that. So I'm putting it in S tier, but I am putting it below Death's Door because that was just a satisfying game from start to finish. Next, we have Haven Park, which I have talked about on my channel before. And Haven Park is just, it's everything. I love it so much. So you already know probably what tier it's going to go in. But anyways, Haven Park, you play as a cute little bird. Again, like a short hike. There's a lot of similarities. You wander around and you collect, basically you expand the map as you go and you discover these different campsites. And at the campsites, you're able to decorate them and put things in it that different campers are requesting. So it's got a little bit of an Animal Crossing vibe for that reason. So I feel like it's a combination of a short hike and Animal Crossing. I actually liked it a lot more than a short hike, even though I really liked a short hike. So it's for sure going in the S tier. I'm going to put it ahead of Echoes of Wisdom, but still below Death's Door. Next, we have Kirby and the Forgotten Land. My daughter got this for Christmas last year and has played it so much, but I didn't play it for a really long time because I was watching her play it. So it was just kind of like, okay, like I already know what this game's about. I didn't see her beat the whole game, but I finally ended up picking it up sometime in the summer, I think. And my goodness, this was such a fun game. It just started raining, so you're probably going to hear some rain sound in the background. My apologies. But anyways, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is so fun. It's my very first Kirby game. I can't believe I've never played a Kirby game before, but it's a lot of fun. I would say this is a definite like S tier game. It's totally worth the money. I feel like I'm gonna like Echoes of Wisdom more than Kirby. I do so far, but I really did like Kirby, so it's still going in the S tier because I think it's a really great game. Next, we have Later Alligator. So this game, I actually saw one of my favorite gamers on here play this game, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get it. But I didn't watch his whole video because I didn't want to know all of what it was about. So you are an alligator, and you go into this restaurant, and there's this other alligator there who's super fearful and really kind of like crazy and paranoid, and he is convinced that his family has a plan to kill him, and so it's got like this mob feel to it, and so he is so paranoid and he asks you to investigate for him. So you have to go find his different family members, and when you do that, you can talk to them, but there's like mini games you have to play to get like evidence from them. So it's really cute, really funny, has like really great quirky humor, which I really love. You'll notice that's something I'm a big fan of. But the game itself was over so quickly, and for the price tag, I didn't really feel like it was worth it. I mean, I did buy it on sale, but I still felt like it wasn't worth it because I beat the game, but I didn't 100% it, and I've never had a desire to go back to it. So I think that this is probably a B tier game. I'm going to put it after Core Keeper, but before Carto. Next, we have Little Kitty Big City. This is a game that my daughter purchased and was really excited about. This is an adorable game where you play as a cat that was napping and you fell out of your high-rise apartment window. So now you're on the streets in this big city trying to find your way back home. And there's little side quests that characters give you as you meet them, and you do things and you get stronger and able to find your way around the city and find your way back home. I thought this game was really, really fun, and you get to collect hats at different places. So there's a lot of like, if you like collecting things and doing little side quests and you like kind of this open world feel where you can go wherever you want and do whatever you want, you probably really enjoy this game. I know that I did. So I'm going to put this one in A tier. Next, we have Littlewood. So this is a very classic cozy game, and it's one that I'd heard recommended a lot, but I just was really not impressed by the art style because it is ultra pixelated. But you play as the hero of the game, but you don't remember. You've beat the big bad and you're rebuilding the world, but you don't remember what happened. And so that's kind of the storyline behind it, but it's very much like a regular kind of like sort of like Animal Crossing, but again, much more pixelated, but different people want to move to your village. And so you have to create the furniture that they want and build their house the way they want. You have to get the materials for it. And this was just like such a relaxing game. And I'm so glad that I got it, even though I wasn't impressed by the art style. This is one of the few games on this list that I did not get on sale. And yet I feel like it was worth every single penny. So this is going in S tier for sure. It still doesn't quite beat Death's Door for me, but it's still pretty high up there. Next up, we have Minami Lane. This is the cutest little indie game where it's like a street building simulator. So there are people who live on the street and they want certain things there. So you have to build like ramen restaurants or libraries or like boba shops, and you have to tweak the right recipe. At the end of every day, people will tell you what they liked or what they didn't like, and then you can better the shops that you have built there. You can add things to beautify the street to make the residents want to live there. The prettier you make it, the more cats will move to this street, and you can pet them. And it's really, really cute. I loved this. I thought it was so well done. It's a very, very short game in terms of the actual guided gameplay, but then you can just play it like open sandbox and create it however you want to. It's really inexpensive too. So the fact that it's really, really short is definitely not a deterrent. I thought that this was absolutely adorable. I think it's probably more A tier for me than S tier for me, but it's like the tippy top of A tier. Like, it's so sweet. Next, we have My Time at Sandrock. So I played My Time at Pacha last year, and I really wanted My Time at Sandrock, but the price tag was just kind of hefty. So I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for it to go on a good sale. Finally it did, and I purchased it. I'm glad I waited till I did, because when it first came out on the Switch, it was an absolute mess and was like really glitchy. It was still kind of glitchy at times, but I actually found the glitches a little bit endearing because they were just goofy and made me laugh so much. This is similar to My Time at Pacha in that you play as a builder, so there's a lot more crafting that happens than farming, but there are some farming things you can do or you don't really have to do. So you move to this desert town as the new builder, and there's an outlaw who has been causing trouble. So there's a whole storyline surrounding that. And then you're rebuilding this city that over time has become like kind of deserted. There are not very many people who live there. It used to be pretty affluent, and now it's just kind of down on its luck and on its way out, and you're trying to restore Sandrock to its former greatness. I loved the storyline of this. I thought the storyline was so much more appealing than My Time at Pacha. I also thought the graphics were better than My Time at Pacha, and I thought it was a step up from My Time at Pacha in every way, and I really liked the gameplay loop of My Time at Pacha. I liked the building, I liked like the way that you would grind for materials and all that kind of stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. So this was everything that I loved about My Time at Pacha, with a lot of improvements on things that I didn't love. So this was for sure an S tier game. It's actually now one of the most played games on my console. I think the tops are still like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Animal Crossing, and Stardew Valley, but it actually was like, it's right below those. So I put a decent amount of hours into this one. So it's S tier. It's like kind of tied with Death's Door, but I'm going to put it below it because I still like Death's Door has more of a lasting impact on me than My Time at Sandrock did. Next, we have Old Man's Journey, which is like a puzzle solving game where you're an old man and you're trying to go from one place to another. You're going on a journey, go figure. And as you beat each screen and each level, you then get like a flashback of the old man's life, and you're learning more about him as you go. The artwork is stunning and the music is relaxing, but I found this game to be like very boring. I just was not a very big fan of it at all. In fact, it feels kind of like similar to me as like Carto, but less enjoyable than Carto. So I feel like this is probably It's probably a C tier game for me. I liked it more than the other ones that are here, I guess, but I didn't finish it. And it's a short game. I want to say it's like 3 to 5 hours of gameplay, and I probably put like an hour into it, and I'm like, I just was not feeling it. Next, we have Paper Trail, which is a Christmas purchase, so another newer game that I haven't put as much time into. It's a puzzle-solving game that is similar in its mechanics to Carto, I think, in that you're trying to get to different places, but each screen that you're on is a piece of paper, so then you can flip things through, like dog-ear the page over, or you can fold it in half to create paths to get to where you need to be. I thought that this was much more fun than Carto. Again, have not finished it, but really, really enjoyed the game mechanics of it and thought it was really, really enjoyable. And another thing I really appreciated that is that if you get super stuck on a level, there are hints in the game, and it's kind of got like a slider scale to where you can choose how many hints you want. So if you just want the first step, you can get that. If you want more steps, you can go all the way through and see every step for the screen that you're on. And I thought that that was really, really helpful. So that way you're not Googling it and trying to figure out what the heck you're supposed to do. So I would say Paper Trail is also probably a B tier game. I don't think it's going to be a favorite of all time, but it's a really fun puzzle solving game and worked way better than Carto for me. Next, we have Pixel Cafe. This is a game where you are an employee at a cafe and you kind of end up job hopping where you get fired or things happen and you bounce from cafe to cafe. So there is a storyline overarching throughout this, but the fun is where the levels are. So it's basically a restaurant management. So you have customers coming in that want certain things. So you have to make cakes or you have to make coffee drinks for them or different like smoothies or different things like that. And as you increase through the levels, the difficulty gets harder and harder. But I was not expecting this game to be as addicting as it was. I think it's billed as a cozy game, but I would not call it cozy because it's actually kind of stressful. But I still thought it was so much fun. It's one that I'd seen previews for on other people's gaming channels and was kind of like, I don't think that's a game for me. But then my friend Victoria got it and was like, oh, I've been playing this and it's super fun and it's on sale right now. And so I ended up getting it for $5 or less. And I loved it. I flew through that game and like obsessively played it and actually returned to it in December, like months later, and started just playing more levels and was just like, oh my gosh, this game's so fun. It's got a great lo-fi soundtrack. It's really like, I love the way the difficulty ramps up and it just was like so much fun. Absolutely worth every penny that I paid for it. I felt like the storyline got just kind of dumb as I went, but that's like my personal opinion. I'm like, I don't even need the storyline. I just want the levels. It's actually hard for me to decide whether or not this is S tier or A tier. So I think I'm gonna put it A tier, but like top of A tier. I did like it more than Minami Lane in terms of like how much I played it. Next, we have Roots of Pacha. You could describe this as a farming sim, but in the Stone Age. So it's very similar to Stardew Valley in some ways, in that you are farming and stuff like that. But again, it takes place in the Stone Age. So you live in a community, and as a community, you start learning and growing things together. The more that you contribute to the town, the more contribution points your town has overall. And as more is contributed to the town, more people have ideas of ways that they could progress this community. So after a time, someone has an idea to create wells and someone else has an idea to tame animals so that way you can ride them around. It did take me a little while to get into this one, and I never really did get into it in terms of like really caring about any of the relationship building, but I really did like the gameplay loop. The caves themselves were much more puzzle based than they were anything else. There was no combat in the game at all. So if you don't like combat, this will be perfect for that. But I actually was missing the combat because I'm like, okay, but we live in prehistoric times. You're going to tell me there's no monsters that I have to fight? There's no beasts that I have to fight? So I was actually kind of disappointed by that part. So that actually knocks it down for me a bit. I never did like 100% it, which I often don't in farming sims. In fact, Littlewood was one of the only ones that I did that with this year. I didn't even do that with my time at Sandrock. I got almost to the end, but not entirely. So Roots of Pacha was a really fun game, really unique. It took the normal farming sim stuff and really put an interesting twist on it. So Maybe it deserves to be in the A tier, but it's not like it was a favorite of the year. So I am going to put it in the A tier because I thought that it was a really well done game, but it's my least favorite of the A tier. Maybe I could have put it in the top of B tier. I'm not sure. Next up, we have TOEM. TOEM is a picture game in that you go around taking photos. You're like this little creature and you go around and people want you to take photos of things. So you're fulfilling that for them. The art style is super unique, I think, in that it's kind of cartoony, but it's black and white. It's got like isometric views. It's just really interesting the way that it's laid out, but it has lots of quirky and fun humor. I absolutely loved every single second of playing this game. This is like one of my favorite games of the year for sure, which was such a surprise. I was not expecting that because I'd never really played a game like this before. I think I would have enjoyed it even if it hadn't had the quirky humor, but that totally just put it over the top for me. So actually, so far out of the games that I've done, like this is my favorite one so far. Next up, we have Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. So Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion was one of my favorite games of 2023. So I was really, really excited when I started playing that to realize that the sequel was coming out where this little turnip ends up getting embroiled in this crime family and starts robbing banks. Like, it sounded hilarious, just like Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. It still had the same humor, but they completely changed the format of the game. So where Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion there was definitely some battle stuff. There was also some stuff where you're trying to figure things out, you're wandering around, you're doing different things with puzzle elements. But this was essentially just like a dungeon crawler that you go in and you just fight the whole time and you try to get everything that you can in a certain amount of time out of this bank, and then you try to progress with that. And I didn't like the format. Like, that is just not my type of game. And I think it's a shame that they took a game that was really well done and really popular and decided that the sequel was going to be a completely different type of game, like not the same format at all, not even in the same genre of games. So for me, this was actually like another one. Like I said, I have a couple of games that were really disappointing, and this was certainly one of them. So this is actually, is it mean to put it in D tier? Because it's not like it's a bad game. I think I have to put it in C tier, but like, I really regret buying this one. Next up, we have another game that I very much regret purchasing. And that's Yonder, the Cloudcatcher Chronicles, I think is like the subtitle of this. So on paper, this sounds like a game I would love. You're just a little person running around. It's totally open world. And you're just going around and discovering things. There's like this weird murk that's covering the world, and you're trying to figure out how to get rid of that while you're also discovering different points on the map. You're discovering different towns, different people, different places where you can create farms. And I had heard some people say this is like Breath of the Wild, but like with no combat. It's got that open world exploration thing, which sounds great. But first of all, I actually really didn't like the graphics of this game. I know lots of people do, but I just really didn't enjoy them. And then secondly, there was absolutely no direction. And you might argue that an open world game, that's the point. You just get to explore. But usually there's still like some sort of like, this is why we're doing this and this is what's going on. And that did not happen. I really disliked it, unfortunately. And I kept trying. Like, I put a decent amount of time into this game because I felt like I should like it, but I really, really didn't. So this is actually a D tier game for me. It's better than The Cruel King and The Great Hero, just because it's not like, I feel like it's a me problem because lots of people love this game, but I was so disappointed. Next up is Lost Words Beyond the Page. This is a narrative game where you play as this girl whose grandmother is very sick, and so it's very much about like loss and grieving, and this young girl, she's writing in her journal. So we alternate between the pages where she's writing in her journal and you fill in different words and you are able to do different things on the journal pages, but she's also writing this story to help her process all of the emotions she's feeling as her grandmother is hospitalized and all these things are happening. And so the story is of this young girl that's a hero and is trying to do different things. And so you're able to make things happen in the story by putting different words in there. I thought it was pretty unique. I hadn't played a game like this before. Super emotional. definitely cried multiple times while I was playing this game, and that doesn't happen often to me with video games. So I thought that this was really well done. I thought the art style was absolutely gorgeous. So this is an A tier game for me. Oh, it's really hard to figure out where to put it. So I've got all these funny, quirky games. This is totally a different vibe. I'm going to put it below Pixel Cafe. The next game is another picture taking game similar to TOEM, but also not similar. And that's Alba, a wildlife story, I think is like the subtitle. So you play as this young girl named Alba who is visiting her grandparents on this island, and some things are happening with some of the wildlife on the island that's a little bit concerning. So you're going around trying to repair some of the things in like the wildlife park and stuff, but you're taking pictures of all of the animals. Some of the pictures you're taking are for various quests, but you can also go around and take pictures of every single animal or bird or bug or things on the island. And that's really cool because as you're taking pictures, there are actual types of birds, like so many different types of birds. And I thought that that was really cool. The mechanics of the game are just really fun. It's really user friendly, but it's also like really sweet and just like really beautifully done. Like such a cozy and relaxing game. One that I could see myself definitely playing over and over again. So for that reason, it's going in the A tier. I think I liked it a little bit better than A Short Hike, but I would actually kind of like group those together and their level of coziness and replayability. They're both super short games as well. Next, we have Super Mario RPG. Man, I was so excited for this game. This is actually a remaster of a previous game that I think was Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64. I think it was Super Nintendo. And it kind of is a precursor for Paper Mario in that it is a turn-based RPG game. I think the mistake was me thinking it was going to be like Paper Mario because Paper Mario has like some top tier, really quirky humor, and this was described similarly, but it just didn't work that way for me. I ended up just like really trying so hard to like this, but feeling overall kind of bored with it, which is probably like a reflection of how far we have come with video games and Mario RPG turn-based games. It's probably really a reflection of that because I didn't play this in its original form as a child, so I have no nostalgic attachment to it. I thought it was like okay, but yeah, I played it all the way through pretty much to the end. I stopped right before the last boss because I'm just like, why? I just don't care anymore. And I hadn't cared for a lot of the game, but I was trying so hard to like it, but I just really didn't. So I think that this is also a C tier game for me, or maybe it's a B tier game. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I liked it better or worse than Carto. I don't know. I'm putting it in the C tier, which is probably kind of controversial because lots of people really liked it, but it just didn't work for me personally. Next we have Chicken Journey, which is this silly little puzzle-solving platform game where you play as a chicken and you're trying to save the world. And this is another one of those games that has really fun, quirky humor. I don't think I've really heard anyone talking about this. I don't know how I even discovered this game, honestly, but it's super fun. This little chicken just going along, trying to save the world. I actually ended up not completing this game. I kind of got stuck on a puzzle and was going to come back to it and then started another game. So I never came back to it. I do want to come back to it at some point because I think it's really, really fun and really cute and really well done for what it is. It's not a favorite, but I did really like it. I think I'm going to put it, there's so many of these that like I wish you don't like with books where you do like a half star rating. I'm like, this is between A and B. It's like 8.5. Like that's even a thing. I think I liked it better than Roots of Pacha, but I didn't like it quite as much as Little Kitty Big City. The last game that I have on here is Born of Bread. So this is another turn-based RPG game where you play as a bread golem. So your dad is someone who baked you, and you came out as this like fully sentient piece of bread. You don't really look like bread. You look kind of like a bunny or something. And you go around and you're trying to save the world. And again, really quirky humor, really well laid out, reminds me a lot of Paper Mario. So I enjoyed this a lot. This is another game that I didn't finish because I just kind of started playing something else. So I would like to get back to it at some point because I thought it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it Definitely more than Crypt Custodian. Oh, I think more than Donut County too. So that's actually kind of high up in the, well, midway, I guess, in the A tier. Okay, so this is my final ranking for the year of all the video games that I played. And you'll see like there's a lot of games that I really enjoyed that were on the cozy side or were on the humorous side, because that was just really what I enjoyed a lot this year. But then you'll also see games like Death's Door that was super combat heavy, that was like surprisingly one of my favorites. Like, I couldn't believe how much I loved this game. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Have you played any of these games before? If so, what were your thoughts? I'm sorry if ones that you loved ended up in the ones that I hated, but that's just kind of how it works sometimes. We all have different opinions. I'd love to know what some of your favorite games were that you played this year. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish and occasionally video content from me. And I will see you again tomorrow with another one of the 12 Days of Christmas.